Let's talk to Jason. Jason, pronouns he, him, calling in from misanthropic orangutans who wants to talk about the use of pronouns. Jason, you're on the Atheist Experience with Forrest and John. How you doing today?
It's a good day.
It's a great day.
Yeah.
What were you calling to talk about? Because the reason why I waited for a second is because the call screen that Tina was filling in, it just said pronouns and that was it. And I wanted to know if we were going to talk about it.
Oh, sure. I'm an English teacher, and I was wanting to discuss the use of pronouns in education. From my perspective as a teacher, there is a grammatical structure that is broken with alternatives. And I see the history as supporting leaving it the way it is and using pronouns that are like one or us in the stead of the they, them construction. And I was wondering what you thought of that, because I've thought about it for a long time.
Well, as an English teacher, you surely, they, them are also singular pronouns, right? They can be singular or plural. They've been used singularly since the 1300s. So, what's the issue with doing that?
The issue with doing that is that, as happened 120 years ago when this was a thing again, is that it breaks person and number and it creates confusion.
When does it create confusion? If I tell you right now that someone just rang my doorbell, what pronouns would I use? I would say I'm going to go see what they want. I'm going to go talk to them. And I hope that they are a nice person. I don't need to enforce I hope that he or she, you know what I mean? That doesn't really work.
Well, sure it works. In fact, I would say that both constructions work. But I would also say that the history of he and she supports the same usage that you have for they. So that if I say he, when I'm speaking to someone who's in front of me, say, and that person presents as male, and by the way, I understand that presentation is not an indication, and that trans people are people. That's not my issue. My issue is entirely grammatical and not political. And it frustrates me because I don't feel like I can ethically teach a thing that I perceive to be as a broken construction.
So hold on. Let me, Jason. Let me ask you this: If I get not realizing somebody would go by they them because you don't realize that they're not that they don't adhere to the gender binary that you seem to want to, but once they tell you, hey, I go by they them, that's how I want to be referred to, are you saying that you're going to just deny that and continue to misgender them? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. And I am not adhering to a gender binary. I am saying that we have pronouns in standard English that already serve the function that is desired by those who would want alternative pronouns, who would want to use alternative pronouns. Therefore,
for which they them are part of that set.
We don't need to create new ones. Now, I'm sorry, I missed what you said.
We're not creating new ones. They them's not new. Am I misunderstanding something here?
I'll be more specific. I mean, a new usage. I have no.
They're not new. It's not using them new.
That's not a new usage. It's been around. Literally, Shakespeare uses singular they.
Well, I understand. I also know that when people create alternative sets, there's a je out there. I think I'm pronouncing that properly.
Those are neo-pronouns, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, what? That was interesting.
Those are neo-pronouns, yeah. Zim and J and all those things. They are new ones, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't quite have a name for those, so that's great. See, all I'm saying is that I can't see why I need to adopt this new construction when the old construction, one, us, we, already works. And I know we've already
so hold on.
That it goes back.
Wait, just to be clear, you're saying one, us, and we. are the ones that you think are preferable here. So just to be clear, when is we used as a singular pronoun?
Well, I would say we is used when we talk about ourselves as part of a larger group. So, as I've heard people in the various shows refer to themselves when they speak of the scientific community, we think that the Earth is not 6,000 years old, something like that.
But that is still, when we talk about the scientific community, that is still a group of people. I'm asking, like, if I was to talk to John, and John is non-binary, right? So I'm sitting here and I'm talking about John, and you don't want me to use they. So I can't say they asked you a question. You want me to refer to John as we and us, and you think that's going to be less confusing?
No, I think that in order for someone to encompass what they like to express about their gender or their nature, that might be some sort of plurality or something in between a binary construction, that we works in a lovely way, and that person could use we and it would work wonderfully, and it would and we
as
Jason,
a royal we, sure, but like I
would do that, and I would use that in reference to
you're
Jason,
talking about using the royal we as a common parlance thing that has no third party usage or third person usage that I know of in this way. Or that I can think of. Maybe there's an obvious one that I'm not paying attention to right now, but like there's no third person usage of we and us that I can think of off the top of my head, except for them. And so like, it just doesn't really line up. And at the end of the day, you're suggesting something that I would argue is far more confusing and not culturally relevant enough in order to replace something that is already culturally useful. Like, surely you can agree, Jason, all language is made up. All language is a cultural construction. All language is something that changes and adapts over time. All we're arguing for here is just using words the way that they have been used for a long time in a slightly new way to reinforce the understanding of something else that is also culturally constructed, being gender.
And now,
and I also,
yes,
Jason, I also want to, I want to go back. Hold on. I want to go back to my original question here, in that if somebody identifies as non-binary and they request that you say they, them, that you're not sitting there saying that you're going to refuse to do that. This entire conversation is justifying you refusing to not call them they, them, like they ask you to. It just makes you come off like a lying bigot at that point.
I don't think so. And the reason I don't think so is that, I mean, I have been someone who has supported the LGBT community, and I'm part of it for 30, 35 years. And I'm not biased against a single soul. What I'm trying to say...
Okay, Jason,
you didn't say
Jason.
you were biased. You said that when you refuse to use someone's preferred pronoun, it makes you come across that way.
That I think that if someone comes to me to answer your question and says, I would like to be used as they, them, and I'm sorry to talk over you, Forrest, but I would say, what's your name? I get a name, and I would refer to them by their name, because I don't want to use that construction. And so my choices need to be respected as well. And so I would use their name.
Just so.
Oh my God!
So
are you serious? Yeah, are you seriously saying like it's too much to ask me to use just different pronouns for another person because I disagree with this thing? Like I'm like, I get it. You want me to use they, them. Fuck that. I'm just going to use your name the entire time, which it incredibly convolutes the conversation.
So much more clunky. That's so much more difficult to do.
I'm sorry, godless engineer, your actual name is escaping me at the moment. I'm sorry that it's difficult for you. I just am saying I think the standard is fine and we don't need to make a change.
And again, you're wanting to force other people to follow your particular paradigm in this particular respect. When somebody asks you to use they, them pronouns for them, you're sitting there and saying, nope, I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm just going to use your name every single fucking time. And that just makes you come across as a transphobic, or not transphobic, but just a bigot.
A queerphobic in this case.
Queerphobic. Yeah, queerphobic.
Yeah, that's
bigot.
the thing, Jason. No one's saying you are transphobic or anything. We're saying it sounds awfully that, and it makes you look that way. If you like, first of all, it's not changing the paradigm. The paradigm is that they, them pronouns can be either singular or plural. Everybody uses singular they all the fucking time. And like, that's why I was saying earlier, when I said before you called that you have to go out of your way not to think, because you have to go out of your way to never recall a single time when, somebody left a package at my door. I wonder what they left it there for. People say that shit all the fucking time. You never say, I wonder what one left it there for. I wonder what we left it there for. You would never do that. That's ridiculous. And you certainly wouldn't go hunt down the person to find their name so that you could then say, I wonder what David left this package for. It's just a stupid thing to do. And what John's telling you is that, like, it is so much more difficult to try to keep someone's name in your mind so you can say, he said this and she said that and Jasmine said that too. It's just pointlessly complicated when you could just use a word that everybody already uses all the time and has for hundreds of years.
But they haven't used it for hundreds of years. It's gone out.
Yes, they have.
And it's come back. I'm sorry if you don't understand that. That is
no. Oh my God, the condescension.
All the time. You may be an English teacher, but I remember taking English classes, and I remember my whole life I've used they as a singular pronoun all the time. I've done it frequently. I've done it today.
Is that it breaks person and number?
No, it doesn't.
No. Okay,
no,
Jason, what you're telling us here today is that it puts more of work on you because you have a different understanding of, I guess, the usage of words for some reason. And so you don't want to be burdened with respecting another person. That's what this really gets down to. You don't want to be burdened with respecting another person and how they want to be referred to. So you are going to impose your own paradigm on that person. And I feel like that just makes you kind of shitty. At least it makes you come across as shitty.
I just said, because I'm trying to remain calm and I'm trying to remain on topic. Can you tell me what I just said? Did I or did I not?
I wasn't talking.
Agree with you.
No,
you're sounding like a bigot?
I did. I actually said the words that I agree with you about the usage of the pronoun they. But at the moment, the both of you are so emotional about this issue, which is a hot button issue, you have missed the fact that I am agreeing with you.
I'm not emotional. I'm laughing about this.
You to get upset and tell me how.
I'm not upset. I'm not upset, and no one has called you anything.
Yeah, you told me, Forrest. You told me that what I was saying was stupid.
No, I didn't.
Oh no!
You got so caught up
Wait a minute,
that you missed saying. Well, watch back the call as you.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let me correct myself. I probably did say what you are saying is stupid. I never said that you are stupid. I never called you a name, but I may have said that what you're saying is stupid. I know for sure that I said it was unnecessary and it was overcomplicated and it was ridiculous and it was silly. And I will continue saying those things. I'm not calling you anything. I'm certainly not getting emotional. I'm laughing a bit because it's kind of silly what the lengths you're going to avoid.
I just agreed with you about that particular usage, and we didn't hear that because we were too busy yelling at what kind of person I am for my silly usages.
We didn't say anything about what kind of person you are.
Robust thing.
No, hold on, Jason. I'm wondering
if you agree that the word can be used singularly and has been used singularly since the 1300s, and like is just a consistent thing that everybody knows. If you agree with all these positions, then it reinforces what John and I are saying here, which is that it seems that your position on this issue is purely out of your own comfort and just not wanting to readjust your language to what is, really more popular in modern times, which is how language has always worked. So you as an English teacher are going out of your way not to engage in the function of English and instead are holding to this bizarre, convoluted, and if we're being very honest, selfish worldview about how you think English should work.
Well, I am a teacher. It is my job to teach the standard. And so I wanted to talk about the ethics of that. And apparently you think it's a very selfish thing for me to teach standard English in a standard way in a public school classroom. That was the purpose of my call to discuss that.
If you had taught, Jason, if you were teaching standard English, you would teach that they is a singular pronoun as well as a plural pronoun. It can be used either way.
Again,
and that as gender is a social construct, there are more than two options. And so if you don't want to call yourself he or she because you don't feel you fall into those categories, they is an appropriate way to refer to yourself. And it's very popular and it's very common and it's been around for a long time. Those are all standard English lessons.
Well, I don't agree that it's been, I know that it was in usage, but it's gone out of usage and it's come back. That's the history. I think you've got a bandwagon fallacy there in that it's very popular. I don't care if it's popular. That's a bandwagon fallacy. Yeah,
that's not. I wasn't saying it's accurate because it's popular. Oh my God, dude, that's not what the bandwagon fallacy is.
But Jason, yeah, you're totally wrong about the fallacy there because Forrest wasn't saying it is correct because a lot of people do it that way. What Forrest, maybe Forrest can correct me on my understanding of what he was saying was just that, the way that language changes, we are now using it like in this way, and which is still a fine way to use it. Is perfectly permissible in the language. It's just that culture has shifted to do this thing, and that's not a bandwagon fallacy because it was never wrong to use it a different way.
Well, that I think I'll concede that, but I don't think it's working for the reason that you say. You were saying the one thing that you did say that I think makes it a bandwagon, makes me wrong about it, is that people were using it. I'm not remembering it precisely, but I'll agree with you that was not a bandwagon fallacy. But again, what I'm trying to say is if I disagree because of the structure, because of the study I put into the structure of English, which has an internally consistent set of rules and a bunch of idioms, how can I properly do it if I can argue grammatically that it doesn't work? And that was the entire purpose of my call.
Because you can't argue grammatically that it doesn't work.
Hold on, I'm very confused because Jason, you seem to agree that it's been used in a singular fashion since the however long, and it's been that way for the longest time. It's been grammatically fine for the longest time, but it seems like now you think that it's not grammatically working fine.
No, I agree that people use it. I don't think it's a good usage. When I was in school 35 years ago.
Is it a wrong usage? Is it not how English works? Is it not how English works?
Changes.
Is it not how English works?
Etymology as well.
Does English work that way? Does English work that way?
Which way?
Huh?
I missed it.
Does they them being used as singular to refer as a pronoun being used singularly to refer to a single person? Is that not how it's always worked, like in English?
No, it's not how it's always worked. It didn't work that way 35 years ago, as I said earlier. So
it did work that way 35 years ago, Jason.
Yeah.
Like even Jason, first of all, you're fucking wrong. And second of all, even if you were right, you yourself said it went out of style and now it's come back into style, which means it's back in common usage, which is why it's being used, because words don't have strict definitions. They have usages, right? It's why in the dictionary, the word one of the definitions of the word literally is not literally, because that's the way it's used. And you could go back at a certain time, you could go back to the 1920s and say cool to somebody and they would wonder why you're talking about temperature. But for the past 100 years, we've all known that the word cool also means nonchalant and cavalier and attractive and stylish and whatever else, right? Because that's how fucking words work, dude. So like, even if I agreed with your narrative that there was a brief period in human history somewhere between the 1300s and the 2020s where for some reason we stopped using the singular they, it doesn't stand a reason to say that today we can't use it that way. And I hear you talking over me, but at the end of the day, it doesn't change the fact that I've got a fucking thing right here. The Oxford English Dictionary's website has a whole fucking article on the history of the singular they and how these fucking, the editors in chief chief of the dictionary to argue against people saying that it can't be used singularly. Like, this is not fucking news, dude. It's way more complicated to try to do things the way you're doing it.
I'm merely advocating for the standard of English that is taught in classrooms, and I've been in classrooms for decades, and it's not what you're saying. So I'm advocating
So
standard.
Jason,
It's like
Jason,
I know.
Do you think, Jason, do you think the standard of English taught in classrooms, because you live in Missouri, do you think the standard of English taught in classrooms in Missouri, not including the idea of non-binary gender pronouns, do you think that that is more guided by like academic standards of what English is and how English works? Or do you think that has more to do with the fact that you live in a very conservative state, in a very conservative country that is currently struggling with the idea of non-binary gender, even as the vast preponderance of scientists have come out in favor of this, and like it's a big cultural movement? Do you think maybe 35 years ago, when none of this shit was coming out and being as public, maybe then also the culture in which you are living may have influenced the fact that you weren't teaching about non-binary gender pronouns at the time? Maybe.
I think, to genuinely answer your question, which was quite lengthy, so I hope I get a hold of it, is that I don't think that it applies the way you're saying, meaning, because that was a big one.
It was a pretty simple question.
Well, it was, yes, but you said a lot of different things, and I'll be honest with you, I didn't quite internalize all of it. So
I fleshed out the idea. Do you want me to do it again, but slower? Like, I fleshed out the idea, but it's a very simple question.
I thought I got all the parts, and they didn't. And so here's, I'm going to try and answer the question as I remember it, and I've got it. If I have it wrong, please correct me. I don't think the social climate of my time, which was quite anti-LGBT, etc., which is not a part of what relates to my question, had anything to do with how it was taught in those days. I think it was taught as a standard, and that there were usages for those pronouns that were in a certain way, and they were used in that way, and they were not used differently. And when I was in school and I misused it, which is the common alternative usage now, I was chastised for misusing the pronoun. So it was taught that way, and then I was taught that way, and I still think that it's a robust standard. And if I've missed, and
Jason, let me ask you this: do you think that we should update our current usage in a modern context, not in like any other older context? Do you think that we should update our usage to include our ever expanding knowledge of like sex and gender, so that people that are not part of the gendered binary can be fairly represented? Because let me just tell you right now, Jason, if somebody comes up to you and be like, hey, I'm non-binary, I want you to use they, them for me, and then you ask their name and only will use their name to refer to them, that is so like I'm trying to think of the word. You're dismissing their identity at that point. You're dismissing what they just told you.
Such as you, and I hear one such as you speak, and tell me that I am doing a certain thing that I am not doing. I find myself angered by you and others such as you, and one.
Oh, so you're getting emotional now.
No,
don't get emotional.
I'm telling you, by using the pronouns that you say don't work, that it works.
Okay, so again, what I want to say is that you're making the case to justify you not having to show respect to another person, is what it boils down to, at least for me.
In no way. I am part of the LGBT community. I founded the LGBT center at my college 30 years ago. I protest, I vote. In no way is what you're saying correct. I simply think standard English does what it should with the formal and personal pronouns, and I wanted to talk about the essence of teaching that.
As a member, of the LGBT community, Jason. Jason, as a member of the LGBT community,
Louis, with a trans
Jason, as a member of the LGBT community, I don't know what you are, right? But you can tell me, like, I'm assuming we can engage in hypotheticals here. If you went up to a person and said, like, I am a gay person and I have a husband or whatever, like you explain I'm married and I'm gay. And that person said, okay, who's the man and who's the woman in your marriage? You would understand how that's a shitty microaggression, right?
I wouldn't call it a microaggression. I would just call it shitty. But that's not, again, what I'm doing.
But so you understand how that would be shitty, and how even if this person were to then tell you, well, I mean, fuck, dude, the standard has been man and woman in marriage. So I'm just putting it into the standard the way it's always been in a way that makes sense for me. And so, like, I'm not going to misgender your husband. I'm not going to call your husband a different name. I'm not going to call you a slur, but I'm just going to say that this person's the woman in the marriage. Like, cause that's the standard. You can see how that would still be an increasingly shitty thing to do, that maybe this person means well, thinks well, whatever, but it's really just ridiculously dumb, and it goes well above like what you would expect a normal, reasonable person to do. It's a shitty thing to do. It overcomplicates a relatively uncomplicated situation. You get that, right?
There's been an awful lot said, and I think we may have forgotten what I said at the beginning of the call, which is that the pronouns, when you look at their histories, and I'm talking about he and I'm talking about she, can be used in this way, man. Okay? They can. I'm just trying
to get across to you.
Man and God.
I'm just trying to get across to you, Jason, that you are doing the same fucking thing here. When you tell when someone approaches you and says, hey, I use they, them pronouns, and you say, okay, I'm only going to refer to you by your name. I refuse to engage in the pronouns that you use. I refuse to validate the pronouns that you use. I refuse to accept and justify and participate in this paradigm that you are expressing here. Because when you look at the history of the words, I, as an academic, can tell you, when you look at the history of the language, it has this in this context. Nobody gives half a shit about your academic studies in this way, or the way that you think you have a different, a superior opinion to other academics in this area who don't think anything you're saying is reasonable and don't support anything you're saying. And all it makes you sound like is an asshole. You're overcomplicating something. And if you come along and say, no, it's okay, I'm LGBT, I protest, it doesn't matter, because all you gave this person is, I refuse to participate in your identity. It's the same way as somebody asking a gay couple, well, who's the man? It's just fucking shitty. It's overcomplicating something that isn't complicated for your erudite opinions as a great expert in this field that disagrees with other experts in this field that nobody has time to listen to, and you're not going to explain. It just makes you look like a dick. That's all we're saying.
I think you've misrepresented what I'm saying. I don't want and don't do the who's the man in the marriage thing. People have asked me about that with my boyfriend. It is a shitty thing. Okay?
I never claimed you did.
Well, I mean, I'm saying you are objecting to that construction. You talked about how that very thing, you used that very example. I am starting to get a little emotional at this point. But here's all I'm saying is that there is a history of pronoun being used in a gender neutral way.
Yeah, okay, we understand that there, Jason.
Who gives a shit? Who gives a shit, Jason?
So I think the real question, hey, Jason, I need to ask you a question.
I will concede they, them, if you will understand that what I'm trying to say is that he has had a gender neutral construction.
He does not. Okay. Yes, Jason. Sometimes he can be used in a gender neutral way, in the same way that sometimes dude is used gender neutrally, and all sorts of things. Now, the question to you, Jason, is if you walk up to a woman and call her a he, do you think that she is going to be hurt and offended and annoyed? Or do you think she is going to stop and say, as an English teacher, can you please explain to me the history of the word he and how it can be gender neutral? neutral in this way so that I can choose whether or not I understand whether you're a bigot or just someone with a great opinion? Or do you think she's just going to be fucking annoyed and hurt by that? What do you think is going to happen, Jason?
I don't think that would be the usage I would use. I know that many times in my life, and I've seen other people do it, and I've heard it on these various shows, where people refer to people as a group as guys, and nobody gets upset. So, I mean, it does happen.
Guys and he are different words, right?
That's a very common construction these days to say, hey, guys.
Yes.
And it has a history of being used in a neutral way. So
yes, and there are, just to be clear, there are some people who disagree with that and don't think it should be used that way and are arguing for the language to be changed and for us to all collectively stop using it that way because it doesn't work that way. And I don't agree with their arguments, but I think they're valid arguments. The question is, you're not using the word guys, Jason. You're arguing for the word he.
Sometimes. It goes back and forth over time. So we're
right. It goes back and forth over time, like a language, Jason, like a language that also uses a singular they.
But I already conceded that, did I not? I mean, I could not avoid such. But
Jason,
can you repeat what I said without mocking me about he?
No, Jason, I have a question for you.
Okay.
I have a.
Trans people are
I have a question for you. I'm wanting to know, kind of, I guess, a good wrap up for our conversation here is answering just this one very poignant question. And that's, do you think the ethics of using your idea of English is more important than the ethics of you respecting someone's identity?
I wanted to talk about that at the beginning of this call, but I got really upset. I've been saying over and over again,
I'm sorry. You screaming the word, somebody got really upset is very fucking funny, Jason. That's really great.
It is really great. That's what I called in. I wanted to talk about.
Oh my God.
No.
Okay,
Jason, I would like you to just ask yourself seriously, because I asked the question a minute ago and I feel like you didn't really answer it seriously. Just, you walk up to a trans woman and start calling her a he. You walk up to a mask-presenting non-binary person and start calling them a he. You start using traditionally male pronouns and collective nouns and all these things for these people and say, no, it's okay, because I don't agree with your construction, all right? This other one, it doesn't make any sense. And all John has been saying this whole time and all I've been saying this whole time is, for number one, academia disagrees with you, just standard English disagrees with you. But most importantly, even if you had some case for this, just common parlance doesn't work that way. And you, as an English teacher of all fucking people, should be able to recognize that language changes over time, English changes over time, usages change over time. And you sitting here arguing about this to somebody when they're just looking for basic human dignity, especially in today's political climate, doesn't make you academic or intelligent or any of that. It just makes you a dick.
But I called him he, and I said no repeatedly. So I'm telling you that I am willing to show respect.
And yet, that's what you're arguing for.
Teach it in the classroom, and apparently we can't talk about that, which is a shame because I understand.
How would you teach it in a classroom? How would you teach it in a classroom that it's not appropriate to use singular they, despite the fact that lots and lots of people do all the time and have for a very long time?
See, I feel like I'm being strawmanned in that I didn't say that. So,
you did.
I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't refer to a transgender person as he if that person is not he. So I feel like I'm being strawmanned in that regard. But it doesn't matter. You're wanting me to get off the call because you think I'm sort of a ridiculous idiot. And that's okay.
Nobody said any of that either. It's very funny to have you be fucking screaming about how somebody else is emotional, and then in the same breath as you claim that I'm strawmanning you, you then say, you think I'm a ridiculous idiot. You want me to get off this call, which no one has said at all. You're just putting words in our mouth.
I did do that wrong. Yes, I did. I did that wrong. Okay.
So Jason, I do want to clarify something. We weren't trying to imply like what you had said about the trans person calling them he or whatnot. What you said originally, just so that we can come back around to this, you said that you would reject the usage of they them that is requested of you, and you would instead just use their name. And I pointed out at the time how that's very disrespectful and also is dismissing their non-binary identity. And I wonder if you recognize that.
Them, I am disrespecting their gender by using the name by which they are generally identified. I do not think makes.
You are disrespecting them by singling them out in the way that you treat them and making a really complicated situation out of something that is genuinely simple and commonplace and everyday and non-consequential.
And not standard, which is my job, and I wanted to.
It is standard. It is standard, and it has been standard for hundreds of years. And even if there was this weird lapse in usage that you talk about, which I don't believe exists, because the fucking Oxford English Dictionary doesn't believe it exists. I'm not an English person, I'm just a biologist, a big dumb stupid idiot. But like, I can't.
Your video about what transgender people.
Oh my God. Jesus Christ. I didn't say you were calling me that. I was making a joke. I was being facetious and downplaying myself. This is the most one-sided emotional conversation. It's bizarre. Like, there's so much fucking anger and frustration coming from across the phone, and we're just trying to get down to brass tacks of the fact, like, if you reject this concept, you are not only doing English wrong, you're also just being an asshole. That's the whole thing. That's the entire argument. Is that, like, even if I agreed with your academic perception of what English should be, that isn't how it is used commonly, and you're making a big deal out of nothing, and you're further marginalizing non-binary people and making them feel more out of place and more rejected and more of a fucking pariah, and you're making them feel like they're out of, like, just this thing that everybody has to cater to and kowtow to, and it's such a fucking inconvenience for you that you now have to go out of your way to not use pronouns at all when talking about them, but only use their name, which, by the way, I can't get over the fact that this whole time you keep saying I would use their name to talk about them. You're using fucking singular they and them, dude. It's just like that whole fucking thing is just so unnecessarily convoluted just to get to a point where you feel more comfortable. It's not about your fucking comfort, Jason. It's about their fucking humanity. And it's weird to me that you're making this big of a deal out of it. That's the whole thing. That's all I'm trying to get across to you for 36 agonizing minutes.
That you did, because it's not about my fucking comfort. I wanted to talk about the ethics of the standard and not about my
fucking ethics is using they them. That's the ethical position.
Right. Jason, I'm glad that you brought it back to the ethics, because, like, I want to know, do you think that your ethics and your perception of correct grammar is more important than the ethics of correctly identifying someone by their pronouns?
I think that I'm glad you brought that back, because I wanted to answer that. I don't think it's more important, but I don't think it misidentifies the way I have described it. I don't know if you caught it, because I only did it once, and we've all been talking over each other. Okay? But no, I don't think it's more important. I wanted to talk about how to teach it, because, Forrest, I know you're a teacher. And so that's all I really wanted to do. And it
seems, but correct me if I'm wrong, Jason, but it seems like your position on that is to not teach it, right? Like, you're saying don't teach the singular use of they, them.
Again, it's not that. No, how is what I wanted to talk about, and what was ethically correct.
Let me help you. Let me help you then. I'll do that.
I'll tell you how I do it.
I've got it for you. So It's what I already did a minute ago, and then you completely ignored it and straw man. If I was speaking to a class, if I was an English teacher today, if I was smart enough to be an English teacher, I would be up in front of the classroom and I'm teaching about pronouns. I'm like, all right, y'all, sometimes, right, I don't want to use somebody's name over and over and over because that's really weird and clunky and difficult to keep up with. And so here's what we're going to say. We can say he or him or it or she or her or they or them. We have all these words and these are called pronouns. And so typically boys are referred to with he and him and his, and typically girls are referred to with she and her and hers. But what if you're neither a boy nor a girl, right? Because gender is a social construct, it's a really fuzzy thing. Well, we have this other option. Most people who fall into that category, what we call non-binary, they generally like to go by they and them, which really works for them. But there are also other options out there. And so it's really just polite, if you're not sure, to ask somebody. And that's why you'll also notice a lot of adults will introduce themselves by telling you what pronouns they prefer as well. It doesn't always happen, but it does happen sometimes. And that's just to make things easier. The most important thing, kids, is to remember to respect people's pronouns. And if you get them wrong, apologize and try to do better in the future. That's the biggest thing. That's how I would teach it if I was a teacher, Jason. That'd be that fucking hard.
I tell you that I am learning from this call, Forrest. I don't think I would disagree with anything you said except for one tiny tweak where I feel like I have to address standard and non-standard usage and basically you've helped me understand how to better do these things, both of you. And so I appreciate that. Okay. I would probably give that speech that you gave, Forrest. I probably would. But I would address standard and non-standard issues and the history of the words to show that, as you pointed out repeatedly, language changes. I'm very much aware of that. And what I'm trying to say is some of the older usages aren't as derogatory as we're making them out to be. And so I would encourage kids to learn about the history of the language. Read Baugh's History of the English Language. It's a wonderful thing. And so, okay.
You know what would be incredibly difficult in that respect, Jason? Jason, it'd be really difficult for you to maintain that and tell them to read Chaucer or Shakespeare or Jane Austen, considering they use the singular they them
all the time.
I've taught adults.
Anyway,
I could tell adults that. I could tell it's not who you're teaching how you do that. But I don't disagree with what you said, Forrest. I would probably say that in class, and that does help me do it better.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm glad we could be useful, Jason. We're going to talk to you later because we're already 17 minutes over time. But thanks so much for the call.
Right. Well, thank you for your time.
Bye-bye. Won't someone please think of the grammar? Please. With that, y'all, it's the end of the show. It's been a fun one. We're over 70 minutes over time, and I've got another show in 30 minutes that I got a call time for, so I've got to go. But John, anything that you want to wrap up with?
Not really. I mean, that was an interesting last call there that we had. Freaking pronoun. It's always the pronouns. I remember one guy we had wanted to identify as a helicopter and then played stupid about that whole thing. It was really crazy. But in any case, I feel like
made some progress.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I don't know. I feel like I hope Jason learns from that and maybe can communicate better, but it really kind of came across, at least at first, like he was like, well, it's more important to adhere to the traditional usages of these things, which I feel like he wasn't even correct about, but it's, whatever.
That's the biggest thing. I feel like he wasn't correct about these traditional usage, and it depends on what you mean by traditional, right? But like, I feel like he wasn't correct on the historical usage of this. And again, I don't know if it came up in chat because I don't have the wrench, but like I did show this do I put singular? I closed the tab. Here we go. I did show this for a minute. This was an article from frickin' the Oxford English Dictionary that I had up on my screen for a moment there. of a brief history of the singular they. This is from OED.com. Hold on a second. I can actually bring it closer to the middle of the screen. I just have to make sure I don't have Call-in Studio up because otherwise I'm going to dox a lot of people. There we go. Now I put that back in the middle of the screen and now I can share it that way. Yeah, so like you've got like, this is the freaking Oxford, like with this whole history of it. And I highlighted this at the very end here about like, you know, the editor, former editor-in-chief of this dictionary also dismisses objections to this singular use of they being unsupported by historical record. And so it's just like, I don't know, man. Even people who object to singular they as a grammatical error use it themselves when they're not looking. A sure sign that anyone who objects to singular they is, if not a fool or an idiot, at least hopelessly out of date. I didn't write that. The dictionary did. But like, that's the thing for me is like, it's even if I agreed with what Jason was saying, it's just so unnecessarily clunky and awkward, and it definitely is harmful. So I appreciate the fact that at the end there, he was saying like, you know, that he's learned something from this call. That makes me happy. It got heated for a minute, but I hope that we came to some common ground.